It's the 11th of September 2024, and day 5 of our spring 7-day Sesshin. And we're going to continue to read from and comment on Subtle Sound, the Zen teachings of Maureen Stewart, edited by Roko Sherry Chayat. And the first part that we're going to look at is entitled Peace of Mind. Just for those of you who didn't hear the first talk that was given, Maureen Stewart was born in 1922, so she was 10 years younger than Philip Kapleau, but most definitely part of the first generation of Western Zen teachers. So, section Peace of Mind. And here she tells a familiar story. Bodhidharma was already an old man when he made the long 3-year journey from India to China in 520 of the Common Era. And the story of what happened when he paid his respects to the Emperor Wu is well known. The emperor thought of himself as a very good Buddhist. He had built monasteries. He had seen to it that text was transcribed. He had done many things that he considered exceptionally fine. But when he asked Bodhidharma about the merit due for all of this, much to his shock and surprise, Bodhidharma said, "No merit, none." She comments on this. If you do something for the sake of merit, there is no merit. The work you do inconspicuously, that nobody ever knows you did, is the work that is really the most meaningful. Work that is done not for the sake of an expected reward, but for the sake of the work itself, for the sake of the next person who comes along, is work that is worthy. When you go to the bathroom, you leave everything as neat, clean and orderly as you found it. If you don't find it that way, you make it that way for the next person. And she calls this a form of compassion. And we have in Zen this principle or practice of leaving no traces. So the essential part of that is we see the next person who is coming as not separate from us, and so we leave whatever environment we're in ready for the next person to be received into. It's a simple thing, but it really can transform the way we experience our lives and give our lives real meaning. Because the meaning in our lives is something that we give to our lives ourselves through our actions and our values. Master Dogen spoke about secret virtue, of this work that is done without any fanfare at all, even it being hidden, or the doer of the work being hidden. After his encounter with the emperor, Bodhidharma went off to a cave among some cliffs. He sat down facing the wall just as we do, and there he sat for 9 years. One day during that time, along came Eka, who had heard about this strange blue-eyed monk from India. Now, Eka is the Japanized form of Hui Ke, who became the second Chinese Zen ancestor and heir to Bodhidharma. And there's so many legends around Bodhidharma, including this one of his sitting for 9 years facing the wall, probably. But one of them has him with piercing blue eyes. Although Eka had studied the Chinese classics, knew Chinese poetry, had memorized the sutras, and had attended lectures by the dozens, just as most of us have done, well, probably not memorized the Chinese poetry, but done a lot of learning, a lot of reading, you could say. So he had done all these things, but he still did not have any peace of mind. And this was why he arrived at Bodhidharma's place and made his approaches to the master as he sat in Zazen. He was, at this point, Bodhidharma at Shaolin Temple, and it is still possible to go and see the cave where Bodhidharma is said to have sat for 9 years. Now, what did Bodhidharma respond? What did he say to Hui Ke, Eka? He said, "No, I won't teach you. The subtle and supreme teaching of the Buddhas can be understood only through doing what is hard to do and bearing what is hard to bear. How can a person of little virtue and much self-conceit dream of achieving this? Go away." We can all ask ourselves what we might do if somebody said that to us, especially a venerable master. But of course, this was a test. And to this day, this is used as a test in Zen to some degree. Probably more in Japan than elsewhere because of societal attitudes. But there is this practice, at least in Japan, of niwa zume, which is this sitting for 3 days outside the monastery gate before being accepted. So a monk would approach the monastery to be let in for training and made to wait in a special kind of anteroom doing zazen for the 3 days to be up, to be let in. So there's a value in this, if it's used correctly, to spend that time when you're at the threshold of the monastery of looking into what one's intention is. As she says, why are you sitting here? Why are you sitting in this Sesshin from dawn until 9 o'clock in the evening? It's certainly very helpful for us to be aware of what brings us here, why we're here, why we give up valuable time to come and sit and face a wall, just as Bodhidharma did. That this being clear about our intention can help us get through the difficult patches. And as Bodhidharma said, this practice involves doing what is hard to do and bearing what is hard to bear. Facing ourselves, this is what is hard to do it really honestly. Bearing what is hard to bear. Looking into our own suffering. What do we contribute to that? His story continues. Eka's intention was quite strong. He stood in the snow and was rejected time after time, and finally it is said that he cut off his arm. This is only a symbol, of course. It meant that he was ready to give up his life. My mind has no peace. Please help me, he begged Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma said, bring your mind here and I will pacify it for you. Eka said, I have searched for my mind and cannot take hold of it. Bodhidharma said, now your mind is pacified. One point here is that we don't know what length of time there was between Bodhidharma saying, bring me your mind, and when Eka came back with his, I have searched for my mind and I cannot take hold of it. Was it hours, days, weeks, years? But in that process of searching for his mind, he had clearly become receptive to Bodhidharma's words, which were, now your mind is pacified. And Maureen Stewart comments, there is no mind to find, no fixed condition. We cannot put the mind in a little cubbyhole and say, there, now I have peace of mind. I think that it's not so unusual to think of Kensho as some kind of be-all and end-all that's going to fix everything once and for all. But that's not possible, because everything is in flux. We have all felt this yearning for inner calm, but nobody can help us. We must do it ourselves. We have to face our own inner demons. Nobody can do it for us. And there are a cornucopia of demons that we can be assailed by. Anxiety, anger, jealousy, pride, arrogance. The list goes on and on. The first step is really owning the stuff that gets in our way. Taking responsibility for our obstructions, and then seeing through them. She says we have to deal with our grabby ego, continually trying to fix everything in some permanent condition, which prevents us from having peace of mind. We are convinced that our way is the right way, and therefore that nobody else's way is the right way. And so we become anxious, ill at ease, angry, raising waves where there is no wind, as Mumon says in his commentary on the story from the Gateless Gate. Raising waves where there is no wind. Sitting on the cushion, we are making arguments in our minds. What am I doing here? Am I doing this the right way or am I wrong? Does she like what I did? Does he approve? We are raising waves, disturbing our minds instead of being so completely involved in what we are doing that we cannot have any second thoughts about it. Instead of just washing the floor or dusting the cushions while we're working, we're thinking, oh, I have to go to work next week, or I wonder what my boss will say, and so on and so on. We use up so much life energy in this anxiety-producing mental activity. it's actually true that our thought production, our mental activity, is very energy costly. And one of the reasons why we find we need less food and sleep in Sesshin is because we're using our minds in a different way, not having these thoughts coming so thick and fast that they fill our awareness. Raising waves where there's no wind. In other words, making a disturbance where there doesn't need to be a disturbance. Dogen gave some wonderful advice about thoughts arising in Zazen. He said, when a thought arises, we awake to it. When you awake to it, it will disappear. After a long time, the associations are destroyed, and spontaneously there is a coming to one. This is the secret of Zazen. And this is one spelt with a capital O. Oneness. The indivisibility. The secret of Zazen. Waking up to our mind. Maureen Stewart says, Zazen is not about trying to stop our thoughts, but about being clearly awake to them. For example, we hear various sounds, and our minds shift toward them. Without trying to suppress this shifting of the mind, we should inquire, what is the sound? Where does it come from? What is this idea? Who is thinking about it? In this way, we can become aware of the disturbances of the mind. By doing this over and over, thoughts and fantasies vanish. After a time, continuing this kind of meditation, not just for 1 or 2 days, but for years and years and years, the associations are destroyed. All the ways that a thought proliferates into other thoughts and connects with other fixations. The subject and the object, which are joined by association, just disappear. The subject is the mind, the object is its counterpart, the Buddha field in which the sound is heard. Likewise, with what is seen, the seer is the subject, the seen is the object. As we continue this kind of awareness practice, the experience and the experiencer disappear. And the disappearance of these two is their spontaneously coming together through which we experience the one, the unity of opposites. This is. In deep samadhi, our zazen is nothing but this oneness, gateless gateness. It is nothing but inner and outer, in-breath and out-breath, just this. Life is suffering, the Buddha taught, because we want some permanency, some guarantee. If we let go of this desire and just follow a path of doing finite things in an infinite way, then ordinary becomes extraordinary, secular is sacred. Preparing the food, washing the dishes, everything is a sacred act. I think here of that, what Mother Teresa said, we can do no great things, only small things done with great love. Love is such an overused word, but here I think what she means is to do only small things with no sense of separation, no sense of there being somebody doing something. rather this warmth of heart, which Maureen Stewart talks about later on in this, what we're going to read this morning. Just as a footnote to that, we switch to our other source, meetings with remarkable women, where Lenore Friedman is asking Maureen about her recent Sesshin. She says, I heard that at the last Sesshin here you were doing all the cooking as well as Zazen, giving interviews, Dharma talks, flowing endlessly from one thing to another. How I'd love to learn to do that. Maureen replies, well, I think we don't learn that, Lenore. I think it happens. When you become fully filled up with this, it just bubbles over into all these other activities. So the more you take in, whatever it is, the wonderful thing that we're all taking in all the time, the more you give out. And the more you do that, the more energy comes. People were telling me I was doing too much, that I'd get tired. Not at all. One feeds the other. At the end of Sesshin, I did not feel tired. I was happy to go home and get a good night's sleep, but the next morning I felt just as peppy as ever. There's no feeling of conflict. In the Zendo cooking, it's just an important teaching. It's just as an important teaching as giving a talk. And all then says, being filled up, then letting go. It's like breathing, isn't it, Maureen? Exactly. You take it in and you give it out. And you can take in as much from concentrated cooking as anything else. If you're really present with whatever you're doing, it's the same thing, taking, giving, and taking in, giving out. Lenore, is there some way that efforting comes in here? Maureen, well, if you think you're doing something, that's a problem. If you get out of the way as much as possible, then there isn't so much problem. If you really feel that, you're letting it do you. This is, of course, basic to what I practiced as a musician. Lenore, the effort and the effortlessness, the practice, the discipline, and then the letting go of that. I just had a vision of an instrument, that we're an instrument. Maureen, absolutely we are the instrument. The Dharma is playing us, exactly. It's playing everybody. Maybe some of us are out of tune, but as soon as you get the strings not too tight, not too loose, then it makes good music. This reference to the strings is to a story in the classical Buddhist teaching about Sona, the musician, and Sona was making excessive effort and came back to the monastery with his feet all bloody from walking without shoes, and the Buddha gives him a little Dharma talk on practicing in a way that's not too tight and not too loose, just as his strings need to be not so loose that they don't make any music, nor too tight that they can't be played and break. Back to our main text. This path must be followed without any shortcuts. Unlike instant coffee, enlightenment isn't bought in a jar. We must walk on with our own 2 feet, alone. And when we come to the Zendo to sit together for an evening or for a Sesshin, we are loving, supportive companions for each other. This gives us more courage to go on alone. It is our own body, our own breath, through which we experience each moment fully. the effect that we have on one another is very strong. We feel our interrelatedness very clearly. So be mindful. What is our thought? What is our intention? This point about the effect that we have on each other being very strong. We do become, as Sesshin goes on, we become more sensitized to each other. And it's one of the reasons why we have strong form of how we do things. And we encourage people to follow those guidelines. So we create this harmonious atmosphere which is supportive of the concentrative practice that we're doing. If we become lax about that form, then it can be distracting to others. And part of the strength of the Sesshin is the group mind that demands that we do follow this form and the structure for not just for our own good, but for the good of everybody in the Sesshin. It's kind of a creative use of group pressure, peer pressure, we might say. Somebody told me she has been finding it very difficult to follow the 10 precepts. Of course it is difficult to follow this path unswervingly, but the 3 fundamental precepts offer very simple, very clear directions. Refrain from bad acts, do good acts as much as possible, keep your mind pure and warm. Now here these are, the first 2 are the same as our 3 general resolutions. Basically, we say do no harm, do good. But then the third one, we have to liberate all sentient beings. And in the Theravada tradition, they have purify the mind as the third one. But interestingly, Maureen combines aspects from both the Mahayana and the Theravada here to create this third precept of keep your mind pure and warm. The purity of mind coming to us from the Theravada, and this warmth coming to us in the form of bodhicitta, the aspiration to awaken in order to help others awaken, to bring others out of suffering, out of samsaric existence. And they are very simple precepts, not easy to keep, but clear. Refrain from harming, do as much good as we can, keep our mind pure and warm. And she says about these, when our minds are mu-shin, emptied out, cleared up, mu, not, shin, mind, no mind. When our minds are mu-shin, emptied out, cleared up, then we cannot hurt anyone. We cannot really act in an inappropriate way because we feel our interrelatedness. That's very true if our minds really are emptied out. But sometimes people will have an experience of empty mind, and then their mind will become full of pride and arrogance over having had that experience, and that's unfortunately a very ripe ground for then breaking the precepts. So we have to be aware of that possibility, beware of pride and arrogance. Why are we here? Are we here for some self-improvement? Zen is not psychotherapy. Are we here warming and purifying our minds for the sake of all sentient beings? D.T. Suzuki once said, Buddhists have almost nothing to do with Buddha, but very much to do with their fellow beings. I think he's exaggerating a bit about saying almost nothing, but he could be saying it about Buddha as a sort of deity separate from us, maybe. But he's right in saying that we're very much our focus needs to be on our fellow beings, near and far. She says, the great Christian mystic Meister Eckhart, a true Zen person, said, if a person were in such a rapturous state as St. Paul once entered, and he knew of a sick man who needed a cup of soup, it would be better to withdraw from the rapture for love's sake to serve him who is in need. And then she comments on that this is the true Zen spirit, the true Bodhisattva spirit. We're not here to grab something, to get some Zen insight. It is not our awareness, but the Buddha mind's awareness in us. And we could relate this to our situation in the Sesshin, where people have had to take on a lot more jobs because of people leaving sick and so forth. And there are different ways we could regard this. We could look at it as taking away from our formal practice, spending more time on these things. But we could also see it as really a manifestation of the Bodhisattva spirit. We're just quietly getting on and doing what needs to be done. We are not here to grab something, to get something. Zen insight is not our awareness, but the Buddha mind's awareness in us. It's beyond, you could say, beyond I, me, and mine. When we do the verse of the Raksu, we say, no, of course I can't remember it. Somebody recite it for us.
Wondrous is the robe of liberation, a treasure beyond form and emptiness, wherein I will unfold the Buddha's teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings.
So the line I was thinking of is beyond form and emptiness. In what sense can something be beyond form and emptiness? It's beyond these two if we are not attached to either to formlessness or to form things, or samadhi, states of samadhi. Getting beyond the sense of I, me, and mine. Someone told me he was very embarrassed when complimented about his artwork. He became quite self-conscious and didn't know what to say. I told him, when somebody says to me, you play the piano beautifully, I say, yes, I do, thank you. I really do play beautifully, but I don't play. Something plays me. The more we come to the condition of emptied out, cleared up, warmed up mind, the more easily we can let go of the self-consciousness that makes us denigrate ourselves or worry about seeming conceited. We can be glad we can make something beautiful or play beautifully. We can be glad to share it with others and glad they like it. It is not conceited to say, yes, I play the piano beautifully. If I did not, after all the training, all the work, all the effort, it would be sad. And so it is with you. Each of you is the artist of your own life. Play your life beautifully. Hold your head up and be glad that you can offer whatever it is you have to offer freely. We're in Sesshin, we have this opportunity to play our part, to play it to the hilt. We co-create Sesshin as people co-create a piece of music together with improvisation, structure as well, but all contributing to the whole. A little bell hanging in the emptiness sings. Each one of us is hanging in the emptiness, singing. Sometimes lover, sometimes wife, sometimes husband, sometimes artist, sometimes friend, always with open, compassionate wisdom minds. If we take one thing away from our Sesshin, it could be to be able to play our part well, gracefully, fully. Next section is entitled No Big Deal. Our Zen life is ordinary life. When we start adding things to it, as Nyogen Zenzaki said, it's like painting legs on a snake. Just to be ordinary is the most difficult thing. To be plain, to be simple, not to make a fuss about anything. This is our Zen life. Years ago, when Roshi Kapleau was the teacher at Arnold Park in Rochester, there was a workshop going to be happening on the following day, on Saturday, and it was on Friday. Somebody rang the doorbell, and Roshi Kapleau was the only one around, so he let this person in who was coming to the workshop. And later, the next day, when the workshop was happening, the same person came up to him and said, when you let me in the other night, I thought you were the caretaker, the janitor. And Roshi Kapleau would tell the story saying that it was a great compliment to be mistaken for the janitor of the centre. Just ordinary, plain, not with any kind of airs about him. Joshu, one of the greatest teachers, always used whatever was at hand. This included when the seat that he gave Teisho from, one of the legs broke, he got a piece of firewood and just sort of tacked it on to where the leg had broken. But also in his teaching, and she gives an example. His teachings were along the line of, have you eaten your porridge? Have you washed your bowls? Of course, when such ordinary acts are done thoroughly, completely, cheerfully, then they become extraordinary. The thoroughly, completely, cheerfully, this is the love that Mother Teresa was talking about. She talked about small things done with great love. Every single bite of porridge is tasted fully, but it is not done with the feeling of doing something special. There is no self-congratulatory inner voice saying, oh look, I'm such a wonderful Zen student, sitting long hours, doing everything so mindfully. We just do it, with no thought about it, whatever it is. To draw attention to what we are doing would be sickening. It would have nothing to do with Zen. In fact, in Zen sometimes they talk about Zen stink, this the antithesis of Zen, really. We just wash our bowls, washing away any excessive use of Zen terminology, any allusions to enlightenment. For our practice to become more ordinary, more real, we use words that everybody can understand. We refer to what is right here, right now. We sit, we walk, we cook, we eat, we clean, we have nosebleeds, and it's just here, right in front of us, no big deal. And so this her mention of nosebleeds at the end of her life, when she was still conducting Sesshin, she was really very ill, and one of the things that she had to contend with was frequent nosebleeds from her, probably from her tumours. Practicing together is a wonderful, extraordinary process, yet we are so much in it that we can't even talk about it. There is nothing to say. Every single act, everything we do is the expression of our true nature. We may not know it, we may not be aware of it, and we may not even think we have any insight, but everything we do is an expression of who we are. Standing up, sitting down, eating, drinking, laughing, crying, washing our bowls, especially if we do it unself-consciously. Every act is an expression of our true nature. We just have to fully wake up to this. See it clearly and fully. She goes on. And we have never done any of it before. This is the first sitting, the first kinhin that we have ever experienced. We are fresh, completely fresh, taking nothing for granted, with no idea about what Zen is. Everything is seen as if for the very first time. Even though the Sesshin schedule may be very familiar to some of us, we are going through it with keen attention, really being present to each moment, really eating our porridge, really washing our bowls, and when it's done, it's done. There's nothing to hold on to, nothing. There are lots of things that we do every day. Washing the dishes is one, brushing our teeth, going to work, putting the key in the ignition of the car. Many, many, many things that we can think of as or regard as being kind of dull or humdrum because we do them so frequently. But if we really look, we're not actually repeating anything. It's completely new each time, and it's not exactly the same as the time before. If we fully open our eyes. To do each thing fully, freshly, and then when it's done, to let go of it. Nor do we hold anything back. We don't think next time things will be easier, or I'll work harder, or I'll be able to concentrate better. Right, I'll do better. Right now is all we have. That's it. That's it. So let's be here. Let's burn up our resources unstintingly. When we think we have something, we just forget about it. We start all over again, going deeper and deeper, never thinking we have completely understood. Sometimes people ask me, when did you finish your Zen training? I've never finished. There's no end to it. When we think we have attained something, we're in trouble. We need to wash away everything and become a beginner all over and over and over again. This was the beginner's mind that Suzuki Roshi so celebrated in his book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. A young woman called me this week from California to tell me she had cancer. Very worried, very upset, she said, I am preparing to die. I said, how about preparing to live? They go together. And then I asked her, do you know any people who need help? She said, lots. I told her, well, you'd better get busy. Don't worry about your lump. Find somebody else to help. Later, it turned out that what this young woman thought was cancer was just a benign tumour. We put ourselves through all kinds of unnecessary heartache in worrying about what's to come, from little things to big things. We torture ourselves in different kinds of ways. It can be helpful to register when things don't turn out as badly. Some of us are more prone to this than others, but when things don't turn out as badly as we thought they would, that we remind ourselves of how much pain we can cause ourselves by what we tell ourselves. Well, I think we'll stop there rather than getting into the next longish passage. So we'll finish up by reciting the 4 vows. All beings without number